Okay. Got it. So yeah, I would like to say hello and a very warm welcome to our demonstration. And we are work package 6, and this demonstration is part of one of our deliverables. And it's very nice to see so many of you could join. Let's see. Okay, so who are we? My name is Maria Ehrman. My areas of expertise are machine learning and artificial intelligence, signal processing and telecommunications. And the rest of you can continue.
So I'm Marcus Skogsmo, and my area of expertise is data science and engineering, software development, working primarily in the field of satellite imagery, and also for this project for Arctic research.
Yes, my name is Carl Sundström. My area of expertise is engineering, scientific computing, numerical models, simulation, and optimization. And I will also tell a bit more about myself during my part of the presentation.
And then it's me. I'm Frederick, and I'm specialized towards data science and artificial intelligence as well, and particularly against computer vision. But I also do some project management. And yeah, that's us. And also you might notice that Marcus lights up when me and Carl are talking because we're sitting in the same room. So you'll have to look at his beautiful face a little bit more than you had to look at me and Carl. I hope you can live with that.
And we can also mention Thomas Gustafsson, who is our work package leader. He couldn't join us today, but he's also part of our team. And his areas of expertise are in new innovation, video communications, UAV, defense, and security. And we would like to say, before we start, we would like to say thank you very much for last time. And Carl and I met some of you in Kilpisjärvi, Finland. And it was a really nice experience and very nice organizing of this trip, and just lovely meeting all of you. And do you have any word, Carl, to add?
No, I would just agree completely. It was very nice to meet you all, and yeah, I hope to do it again.
Yes, I agree. And so, excuse me, about work package 6, it's called Climate Action, Making Data Widely Available. And we have a few tasks and deliverables. And one of them is increase awareness of machine learning and artificial intelligence and how to use technology. And one of our deliverables was a workshop where we did that. We also had a deliverable about pre-study on inquiries and needs from research stations to identify data sets and questions to be answered. This deliverable was delivered, when was it? Last year? Yeah, pretty much 1 year ago. And now we have our third deliverable, which is this, using machine learning on example data to make specific algorithms and methods available and demonstrate the outcome. And so the agenda for today is we have a short introduction to AI. And then we will have Frederick that will talk about camera traps and computer vision. And then we have Carl, who will talk about computer vision for fungi and community tools. Marcus will talk about tools for analyzing satellite data and digitizing and summarizing analog texts. And I will conclude with a demonstration of a graphical AI and ML tool in Azure, which is a cloud computing, Microsoft cloud computing solution. So let's do a little bit of a refresher. So what is artificial intelligence? Well, it's a branch of computer science aiming to make computers act and think like humans. And what is the basic requirements data. So you can say that the more relevant data we have, usually the better the result. Also, processing power is very important. For instance, if we are dealing with deep learning, in the case of neural networks, it might take several hours to train even a simple artificial neural network using a home computer. And that is why cloud computing services have become so widely used lately, especially in the areas of AI. And why is AI of interest? Well, the amount of data generated far exceeds humans' ability to absorb, make decisions based on, and interpret that data. And complex decision-making is based on patterns, and it's not that feasible for humans to process and find patterns in huge amounts of data. And let's refresh with what machine learning is. Basically, it's about statistics. It's a way to learn patterns in the data by using statistics, and it's worth noting that most algorithms have been around for a long time. So we have linear regression that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, and which is a way to predict the outcome from several data points. We have clustering, basically data points divided into groups. Principal component analysis. Principal component analysis is about dimensionality reduction. And also the first deep learning ideas were already presented in 1967 and basically laid the foundation of artificial neural networks. And all of this has boomed because of increasing computing power. And that's why AI is such a huge deal nowadays. And on the figure to the right, you can basically see how DL, or deep learning, ML and AI relate to each other. We have deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, which in its turn is a subset of AI. And you can say that AI is the concept of emulating and mimicking human intelligence, patterns, interactions, and sensations. In the case of machine learning, this you can say is an approach of reaching AI by learning from data itself without being specifically programmed to do so and improving from experience. And deep learning is the concept of employing ML techniques by using artificial neural networks. And I will hand over to Marcus.
And so that's a small recap of what we have presented during one of our deliverables, the workshop. And since then, we have also concluded our pre-study. And so we got to thinking, okay, so what are we to do for this demonstration? And this is one of the diagrams that we have concluded from, which you can also find in our pre-study when it comes to the quantitative study that we put together. And maybe it's not too easy to actually see how we are to choose between, what demo we are to do in this diagram. So we'll continue to the next one, Maria. And here you see a radio plot, basically. And we have highlighted in solid red the different applications that we have chosen for this demonstration. And then also in the dotted lines, you can see a bit more indirectly what we are to cover as well. Some examples can be, if we see in the down left there, we see detect nature events and hazards. We're not actually to find those things, but these techniques that we'll show you today can be used to detect nature events or hazards. And so the farthest, well, when it comes to the radio plot, the farther away and closer to the sort of outskirts, the more the frequency of the answers has been to potential applications and what you have shown to be interested in looking at more.
Okay, so that was the introduction. So I will hand over to Frederick to show his presentation.
Sounds good. Thank you. Let's see here. And there you should see my presentation. Computer vision for camera trap footage, right?
Yes.
That's nice. Okay. Yeah, so my name is Frederick, and I did my master thesis as a part of AFRI and of Uppsala University and of Interact. And it was in, you guessed it, computer vision and camera trap footage. And I did it at the Interact station in Cairngorms, Scotland, where the Environmental Change Network has their one of their stations. Yeah, this thesis, I think I didn't see their names in the list, but it's Jan, Dick, and Chris. What's his name? Jan and Chris, anyway, from Scotland, who's been my two cooperating contacts there. And maybe you're not familiar with either computer vision or camera traps, but I'll start by introducing what camera traps actually are and why you should use them. It's nothing more than an automatic camera that you put up somewhere where you think that you will have something interesting passing by. You could use it to monitor humans as well, but maybe you shouldn't do that as much. But you put up a camera that's triggered by IR trigger. So if an animal moves by or a person moves by, it will take a photo of that animal. And you'll, in that way, get a very consistent way to sample and monitor animal populations. The drawback is that, of course, it's not perfect, so it will trigger a lot of times when there's nothing passing by. Could be the sun hitting some vegetation in a specific angle, triggering that, or some movement. And this, of course, results in tremendous amount of images that you need to sort through. And here's where computer vision comes in. And most of you are probably familiar with computer vision, even though you don't reflect that much on it in your daily life. But maybe you have used some phone that recognizes, oh, this is a face, a person, and that's computer vision. The thing is, here we have trained a computer not to recognize only human faces, but animals in different landscapes and against different backgrounds and so that you'll have an algorithm that sorts out all of the interesting pictures, so you don't have to spend time sorting through empty images. And let's see. Yeah, that's basically why you should bother. Interact has, as one of its monitoring goals, the basis monitoring program, we want to monitor fauna populations and get good, consistent data. And it's mentioned as one of the problems, because if you do it in some other way, you often need to do quite a lot of field work, and you need a very experienced researchers to do this. And it can be an inconsequent way to gather your data. Therefore, camera traps is a good option. And if you put up camera traps, you'll have a lot of images, and that's why you should use computer vision and save valuable time. Okay, and this is how it looked in Cairngorms in Scotland. About half of the data was empty images, and almost all of the leftover data that was actually real triggers were human activity. So it was only a little slice, barely 10%, that actually were the animals passing by. So you want to sort these images out. And one challenge with this is that if you train your own algorithm or own machine learning computer vision model to recognize this, you won't have that much of training data on what you actually want the model to learn. And you can think of this as, here's a deer, roe deer, or maybe it's a couple of different roe deers. I haven't identified it, but we can see that, yeah, this seems to be the same species and so on. But from just looking at it, we can't really tell what it is that makes it a roe deer against the different backgrounds. It's hard to describe that to a computer. So instead, it needs a lot of different examples against different backgrounds in different angles, in different settings and lightings and so on. So this is, of course, a challenge. Anyway, my work when doing this was trying this out, trying to train and test different machine learning models. And I had 3 different approaches. Firstly, I used one that's called Detector, developed by Microsoft, that is already trained on not this exact data, but on lots and lots, millions of images on animals from other camera trap projects. I also developed one with an algorithm called YOLO, you only look once, to detect animal, and that's only trained on the data from caneworms. And I also trained a classifier. And sadly for me, Detector was the best one, the one that's pre-trained. It outperformed the other 2. But YOLO showed promising results, and if you have a bigger data set with lots of camera traps, you could probably achieve a more specified and specialized model with something like that. The DenseNet classifier, don't bother with that as of now. But it's great news for you that Detector performed best, because you need to be the least tech savvy to actually get started working with the Detector if you want to make use of machine learning yourself. And maybe you don't want to spend that much time sitting down coding and trying to scratch your head. How's this supposed to work? So how do you want to get started? Well, first things, if you don't have one yet, you should, of course, buy a trail camera, otherwise, or camera trap, or whatever you want to call it, motion triggered camera. And they range in about $100 to $300. You really don't need the most expensive one, from what I heard in Scotland, but maybe you want the fanciest one. I don't know. They used 2 different brands, Bushnell and SpyPoint, in caneworms, and both produced similar results. One thing to consider, though, is placement of the camera, because of course you will want to place your camera somewhere where you expect to see animals. And there's quite a lot of different papers on how you can optimize and cover your camera trap territory in the best way to get the best sample size. So make sure to study that a little bit, but just getting it up somewhere will start producing results directly. And when you have your data, you'll want to process it. And you could start by doing a do-it-yourself approach and actually using the Detector algorithm and model hands-on. And I would recommend that if you want to do this hands-on and just try it out, you could use Google Colab, which is highlighted here. And I think you'll get the presentation link, so you can click this later on. But it looks like this. It will be one of these Jupyter notebooks with very clear instructions. The only thing you will need to do is run these cells. I have run a few because you need to wait like a minute or something for a few of them, for it's quite a big model that you need to load. Anyway, when you have it, you can upload your own images like this. I will try it out with a picture of me and another thesis student, and a deer and a little squirrel. There we go. All of them are uploaded. Nice. now you can run your mega detector on all of these images. It will take a while the first time because it needs to load the model. So just using it on 3 images won't be the real use case here. You will want to use it on lots of images to sort out empty and uninteresting ones. But this will at least show you how it works. You'll see that here it has started processing images. Anyway, the first one's done, and the second one, and the third one. Now you want to visualize this just to see what's happening. All of these instructions are in the Colab file. And there we go. You can see that it has managed to find the squirrel, and it will also mark out where in the image that is. It's found the deer, and it's found both me and Maya, and it sees that we are persons, not animals. So that's what Megadetector does, and it outputs these boxes in the form of data as well. You don't have to visualize all of these as separate images. And this is quite an effective way to sort of huge amount of data. But Colab isn't really made to do real big scientific projects. It's more for testing out and experimenting things like this. So I recommend trying it out, but if you want to do anything more serious, you should consider other things. You could also try it on your own computer, but you should be aware that you need quite a powerful computer. You should have a GPU, a graphic processor, to get some decent speed in this. But if you have lots of images, you could also get quite a bit of help from the Megadetector team at Microsoft as well to process large data sets. But my favorite tip on how you should use this is to actually use an app, or maybe it's not an app, but a tool, a program called Camelot. And it's an application built by 2 incredible volunteers who's built it for conservation scientists and for camera traps. And Camelot is integrated with Megadetector. So you will use the machine learning model that's trained to recognize all of these animals and people and separate out all the uninteresting images. But you won't have to get under the hood. You'll get all of the machine learning and output from that done in the background. And I was thinking that I was going to show a little bit how Camelot looks. It's not a super fancy looking thing, but maybe, yeah, I need to change what screen I'm sharing, right? Change to this one. Okay, now you see my screen, right? Yeah. Okay, so this is where you start with Camelot. You'll get a link, and the installation guide is there, and it's quite straightforward. And if you run into any trouble, feel free to contact me. But I won't cover the installation here. We will just start Camelot and see how it looks.
Is it free?
It is free. Some of the very nice things with Camelot is that it's free, and it has a quite active forum with people using Camelot and asking questions. How do I do this? So you can get quite continuous support. It's a very nice tool, and it's also very well documented, so that even if you don't want to ask things on the forum, you could probably read up on a lot of the things on their documentation page. Okay, so here we are then in Camelot, and you see I've set up 2 different surveys, as they called, which would correspond to a research project with camera traps. And I've got one called Fredrik's survey and Interact. And I've set it up a little bit with some Cairngorm picture. It's not really representative for a real project, but you'll get the idea at least. And if we click it, we'll go into the survey. Here you see I have set up 2 different camera trap stations, one called Bridge and one called the Tree Line, where which of course correspond to 2 camera trap stations in Cairngorms. And on each of these we have a different camera. So if I would want to set up a new camera, maybe I've added a new one and we're just getting started, I would start from here and add a new side. Oh no, a new camera. As you see, I have added way more than I actually need, but you can add a new camera name called Fredrik's camera, and whoop, it will show up here. And this is just good to keep. I forgot a K. But this is just good to get some metadata on what cameras are used for each image. Okay, we'll go back to Interact here. Here I can add a camera trap station. So maybe I set up a new one at Cairngorms, and they have a zigzag path where they have a camera, and I know that they started monitoring a lot of things back in 2010. And I think I have the coordinates here. Let's see, I don't see my notes. I didn't think about that, but it's not that bad. This is latitude. This doesn't matter that much, but it could be nice for a bigger project to get your latitudes and longitudes correct. And it's especially nice if you start to cooperate in bigger scenarios where you cooperate with other camera trap projects. Here we'll use the Bushnell zigzag camera. And you can add a lot of more metadata to get more advanced reports. But now we've set up a camera, and you'll want to add cameras from your newly set up camera trap. You'll start by, let's see here. Why haven't I? Oh shit. It's one more step that I forgot. I did it quite some time ago. Many camera trap stations. Well, anyway, it's not that complicated, but I have forgotten it, and I will probably fail if I try to do it live. But if we would add to one of the other ones, maybe the tree line one, you will go to your newly downloaded pictures, and you'll find some images for the tree line. And maybe I shouldn't use humans, I could use some animal ones, and I'll use a couple of tree line. And the only thing you need to do here is to add them, because the thing we have here is you add that you have made a visit to the camera. Oh yeah, that's how you do it. Manage camera. You add a visit like this. Media was recovered, and camera check date. You could say that we checked the zigzag camera today, and you can also add if you keep the camera in the field and it's still active and so on. There, and then we can upload media to zigzag as well. should never demo things in live, because if your brain stops cooperating. Okay, then we can add the zigzag pictures like this. Just drag and drop, super simple, to Bushnell at zigzag. Whoop. And you have uploaded your images into the Camelot app. And the nice thing here is that you'll see on the detection side, if you've set up Camelot with detection, it will start to process your images. This can take a while because they have a cooperation with Microsoft, so that you send your images into Azure, which is a cloud platform, and when they have an empty slot, because they get this for free from Microsoft, they batch process all of your new images and you get outputs. And sometimes this is really quick, and other times it takes a day or something like that. But when you have a lot of pictures, it will go much quicker than trying to do this by hand. But of course, I have prepared a little bit with some images that's already passed the detection with Mega Detector. So this is how it looks when you look at the output, and can go through all of your images that you've uploaded previously, and you can sort on, maybe I want to check images with tree line, and I only want images with animals on them. You'll see this little box. Here we have, it sorts out that we'll only get images where Mega Detector has detected that there's an animal in the picture. You can see on these small boxes that it manages to find where the animal is quite well. And now that you have your interesting pictures, you can go in and identify what kind of species this is. This is a European roe, I believe. And I think it's female, but I'm not that good on this. And you can add adult and juvenile and a lot of different things, and actually put the data that's of interest to you, instead of filtering out, is there even a sitting and squinting, is there an animal in the background there, or is it something else? Another nice tool here can be that you can, if you have trouble seeing something, maybe it's dark and night, you can adjust the brightness of the image, and you can adjust the contrast to better see the animals you're looking at. Okay, and that's basically how Camelot works. You'll filter out your animals, and you can use the search function to filter out lots of other things as well. Maybe you want to filter out things that has martens on them, and you just write. And there's a list of all these different commands. You can search for species, martus. Of course, you need to add these species to Camelot. So here we have a couple of pine martens, or 3 pine martens even. Very nice. That's how it looks. You can also add some things like, has someone processed this? It will automatically update this as soon as you tag a pine marten or something. You can mark images as human caused testifier if there's someone handling the camera trap. So you can filter those out, and you can mark really high quality ones if you need a reference picture for how does a pine marten look. Then of course you'll want to use this data, and hopefully you're familiar with the CSV format, because there are a lot of different reports that you can extract in CSV format. Of course, you can have a full export with all of the information recorded, which is a lot, and then filter out yourself whatever you are looking at. If you're looking at a specific date or a specific species or whatever. But they also have a few pre-built reports. So maybe you want a summary statistics. Summary report with observation of each species in a survey. So if we look at the Interact survey and create that, now, of course, I haven't filled in all of the interesting data to the full extent, but you'll get some. You see that for each of these 3 species that I have recorded, one of them is an ordinary dog, I believe. Maybe that's the one. Maybe you're better at Latin than I am. But you'll see, and it's just ordinary CSV format. And if you want to use this in Excel, you'll probably want to import it from a CSV file into Excel to get it into separate rows and columns. But otherwise, that's how it works, and that's how you get your what do you call it? Get your machine learning activated and start making use of it. So it's a really, really good tool, and I highly recommend it. And yeah, it does what I did in my thesis job, but way easier. So if there's something you should try out, it's that one. But I need to raise some few warnings. Be aware that Detector isn't foolproof. Maybe you have bad image quality, like you have a wet lens on your camera, and some animal-like rock in foreground could trick Detector into thinking this is an animal. We have very, very small or far away animals, could be missed, and things like that. So it's not a foolproof tool, but it's consistent, and that's the most important thing, because you'll get consistent data instead of sporadically making field trips and trying to monitor these populations. Another thing to be aware of is that when you upload these pictures, they will be stored on the cloud, which Azure is a secure service, but it will be accessible to the 2 volunteers that are taking care of Camelot. So make sure to think one extra step before having images containing humans uploaded. And one thing also is that since it's volunteer and free, it's somewhat vulnerable, because yeah, we aren't. They're based on grants. They get a grant from Microsoft right now that they can use Azure for free. I hope and believe that they will continue to be able to use this. But yeah, of course, it comes with some vulnerabilities compared to using a very, very big service. But still, it's worth it, because you'll get much more consistent fauna monitoring, and you'll get lots of beautiful pictures of animals like this. So I think you should start with camera traps and computer vision and machine learning, and yeah, hopefully you'll have some fun as well if you try it out. And of course, if you want to really dive deep into it, you could train YOLO version 3 on even more data if you have a lot of data and get quite nice results, or continue the training of the Detector model, or even train a species classifier if you have lots of data. I also recommend expanding cooperation with others, experimenting and trying out different camera trap approach, because there's a nice scientific community around this. That's all for me, I think. Do you have any questions, or should I take the Menti right now, maybe?
Do we have any questions for now? I also want to mention that we monitor the chat. So if there's anything that you would like to raise, or have questions for us, you're welcome to write in the chat.
That's great.
But regarding Frederick's presentation here, if there are any questions, just raise them now. Maybe you can start with the Menti as well.
Yeah, I can start it. That's a great idea. So we'll have a Menti going during the whole session here, and it's on menti.com, and you need to use this code. Maybe I should have.
I can start sharing
Yeah,
my
you can
screen.
start sharing. That
Yeah.
sounds good.
So this is stop. Yes. Desktop 1. Share. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah.
Great. So now you're going to have to listen to me for a while, and we're going to force you to be a bit interactive. So please go to menti.com and use the code 86567754 and answer the questions. Damn. The classic animal of Glacier. Do we have any more contributions?
Yeah, we have some different kinds of animals here. Reindeer is quite popular here. Cliff nesting seabirds.
Yeah, some of these things I actually don't even know what it is.
Like passerine birds, maybe.
Yeah, passerine birds or what's caribou? Should I know that maybe?
It's almost like reindeer, but I can't tell you the difference.
Maybe someone can enlighten us, or at least me.
It's the same species, but officially in the United States they are called caribou, and in Europe and Russia they're called reindeer.
Oh, okay.
But the reindeer are more tame, because they have a period of domestication.
Okay.
There are reindeer transported to America, and there they are called reindeer too. But basically, it's the same species, so it's just exactly the same.
I think the first association I heard, because I learned this last year when I did this project, and I couldn't take my mind from the Swedish chocolate brand Marabou. I mean that's a bird as well, but it was my first caribou.
That lives in Africa.
Yeah, I know.
Well, at least we can see that there is a high interest in monitoring different types of animals, at least, and so that's very nice to see. And I hope you can see the word cloud as well. But I think we can move on maybe to listen to my presentation, and we will do like this, and we'll go here and Bitspill. Yes, so now I'm going to talk about image recognition for fungi, and also I will also mention some alternative tools, a bit similar to what Fredrik did. I hope you all can hear me well, and I will also demonstrate this state-of-the-art AI on interactive data. So the agenda for my part of the presentation is initially I will have an introduction. I will also tell you a bit who am I, and maybe give some background to why this is what I've been doing and focusing on. I'll also give an introduction to the area and why there is need for it. I will talk about iNaturalist. In the middle of it, we will have a Menti question again. And I will show you implement how to, or applying your own model or implementing it of state-of-the-art modeling. And then also have a live demonstration on interact data to do classification of fungi. Then I will have some sources and some time for questions. And if you have any questions, just blurt them out as well. That's very fine, but we've had some dedicated time for it as well. So who am I then? Some of you met me, as previously mentioned, in Kilpisjärvi. That was very nice. But I was introduced to the world of fungi and biology at a very young age. I was identifying fungi very much with my grandfather and grandmother. And I later decided to study engineering and applied physics at Uppsala University and delve deeper into AI and machine learning. And we can see here a news article this is from 2010. So when I was 15, and this is impressive results of Fungi Week. And this is an article about a reporter from Uppsala who went to the national park of Färnebofjärden in Sweden, where me and my grandpa were having a fungi evening or fungi day, where we went out and identified mushrooms. And yeah, so I've had an interest for a long time of identifying mushrooms.
You should show your shirt as well.
Oh yeah, for those who has not seen, I have this suited shirt as well on me. But also, why is there? What are we talking about really then? So identifying and understanding patterns in data, as Maria mentioned before, is an integral part of science and engineering, and it has been for a long time. We have Carl von Linné, for example. He classified and categorized animals into different taxa, and he did this based on observed patterns and similarities that he found and he thought of when he were looking at them. This was very time consuming, of course, and required a lot of manual labor from him and other colleagues of him. And now today, with the increase in amount of data needed to be processed, this takes even more time. An example of this is the Snapshot Serengeti project, where they have camera traps, as Fredrik have talked about, where they have huge amounts of data with lots of empty images and with 48 different species of animals and over 7 million images. And classifying them and identifying the animals takes huge amounts of time. And volunteers were used to classify and categorize images. And this is quite time consuming and tedious, as many of the images are just empty white space. So what they did was an AI model was created, and they could achieve with all these images, after it's been labeled and used to train the model, it could have the similar accuracy in classification as the volunteers, and an estimation of 17,000 hours could be saved using their computer model instead of using volunteers doing that same work. This project was hugely successful as they had saved a lot of time used, and it sparked interest in creating similar processes for other taxa. One problem that has been encountered has been lacking data, because it's not many pictures of fungi, or some animals are just not as popular, and then you have definitely a lack of data. And as mentioned in the workshop that we had before, quality and quantity of data is crucial for a general success of a model. And either you can create your own data set with millions of images, or you can try to join a community to work to produce more data and open source it if you want. And this is just an example of a community I'm going to talk about now, and that is the Naturalist Community. And it is basically a social network of naturalists, citizen scientists, and biologists, and it's made to mapping and sharing observation of biodiversity across the globe. Right now, there is about 66 million million observation of plants, animal, fungi, and other organisms worldwide. There is around 130 active users, and it's providing valuable open data to research project land managers and other organizations and the public. It lets your observation be identified by others in the community.
And automated species identification tool is integrated in this, which is trained on the large data set that from community contributions. And there's multiple species suggestions, so it gives you several ranking offers, and typically provided with the suggestion that the software guesses to be the most likely is at the top of the list. The model is trained once or twice a year, and the threshold for a species to be included in the training set has changed over time. And right now, if it's over 10 images of 10 research grade quality images, then it will be included in a machine learning model. Yes, here we can see that. And currently there is 13,730 species included in that model, where they have that threshold satisfied. And some short note on how you yourself can contribute. So here are two pictures of my personal photos that I have taken. And one is of a common toad, bufo, and the one is, I don't know the English name of this, but it's Triturus cristasus, which is a salamander of sorts. And so how do I then upload these images if I want to contribute to this community to start help creating a larger data set for images of animals? So initially you press upload, you press choose files, and you upload your picture, and it gives a suggestion of species. Here we can see common toad, bufo, is the top ranking suggestion. And in this case, this is correct. It's not always correct, which we will see later. And then you add this, and then you select observation date and location, and then you submit it. And so it's quite easy to contribute to the model, I guess. If it is now this case for the salamander, it was not very confident. As it mentions, the model itself does that. And the first suggestion is not correct, because I know it is the Triturus cristasus and not the other one suggested. So then I pick that one, and then I do the same as the other, where I set date and location and submit the observation. Yeah, there you have the English name for it, Great Crested Newt. And you can get a lot of other data, which is generally available to all the people in the community. Here you can see some seasonality of observation being collected, which might be of interest. And for me personally, I already love to document and take pictures of flora, fauna, and fungi. So I know that I will definitely use this tool and try to contribute and be part of this community, because I personally feel like this is amazing. And now it's time for the Menti question, the next one. And let's see if we can go to the next one from here. So go to the same place again and answer the question. Well, we have people love all fungi equally. That's very nice of you all. I feel sorry for Pekli or Pekki. It's nobody has chosen it.
Can you eat it?
What?
Can you eat the Pekli?
No.
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 Which ones can you eat?
The Sparorasis crispa.
Yeah.
That one you can eat. That's nice. It's a very nice, tasty food. And Cortinarius sanguensis you can color red color with.
jarn. So that's also some more fungi related facts.
We have a question, Carl.
Oh, sorry.
Are there any quality control of the input to iNaturalist?
Yes. So what I can go back here. So when it's 20 image of research grade quality, and only people with that the power to create or classified image in that regard can do that. So I think, for example, Nina from Interactive, she is certified to classify at least fungi in that regard.
So you have to get some kind of certification by the admins that, yeah, you're a researcher in this field.
To my knowledge, yes. So there is some quality insurance at least. Okay, it seems like everybody loves fungi equally is winning, and that's very nice to see. I will have to say that I agree. And let's go back to the presentation. And now to do your own model. First of all, I would like to introduce a recently published article by Piquet et al. And they trained a model specifically for Danish fungi. Here you can see an example of the dataset that they used and the different species. They tested different methods for classifications on several different datasets as well to see how that affected the results. And they tested different things throughout the article as well. It's a very interesting read. And it was a very high first suggestion accuracy rate of over 80% for over 15,000 species. It was using the Danish Fungi 2020 dataset, where they had over 300,000 images, and the species was exactly 61,604 species. And also they had a mini version of the dataset with roughly 40,000 images for 182 species. And they also open sourced the two datasets and source code to train several of these different models that they provided. They also provided some pre-trained models as well. So that was very, very nice of them. I decided to follow their training steps for the Danish Fungi Mini 2020 dataset. And it's a time-intensive training, and it depends very much on the hardware how much time that this training is going to take place. The model I used was the SC Res Next 101 32X4D. That's a mouthful. And they managed to get 72% accuracy. When I applied it and utilized their the code, the open source code, I got 56%. And for me, it's lower due to time constraints when training the model, as their hardware was much better and I had to stop earlier before the model could converge even more. So some limitations of the model. It's only 182 Danish species that is in this. So it's not worldwide, which is a difference compared to the, for example, iNaturalist dataset. And it doesn't handle unknown or species outside of the dataset in a special way. So there could be mispredictions in that way, which I will show later as well. And now we're going to see it in action. Where I'm going to show you some machine learning on example data and demonstrate the outcome of it. And I would like to say thanks to Nina Filipova within the interactive community for providing some example data for which I will use today. So we will go here. And what I have done here is first I import necessary library. I read metadata about the images. I do some pre-processing of the metadata and so on. I define some functions which I will use. I call the model and then I put it in evaluation mode so that we can evaluate the outputs. And later on, I create a prediction function. And then I have already uploaded images here, and we can see what it puts out. So here I have a Amanita muscaria that is taken by Nina, and we'll see what the model predicts that it is. So it does predict Amanita muscaria with a very high certainty, it feels like. This is the image as well. And yes, so it's very nice that it got it correct this time, because keep in mind, it had an accuracy when using the validation data of 56%. Then we have another image, and it's also very certain on this one. It's also Amanita muscaria, so it is very correct in that sense as well. And even more good results. This is Mycena gallericulata, and it's not as certain on this one, but it still got the species correct, as you can see here. Here we have the name of the file, and that is the real species, and this is the predicted outcome. And here we have another fungi, Amanita vaginata, and it also could predict that one. Now there is some cases where it doesn't perform as well, and I think it is important to also show those cases as well. So for example, now we have another Mycena gallericulata, and it doesn't predict the right one here, and it's not very certain as well. So it's a spread certainty throughout the classes in this model, and it predicted a relative to this one, but not the correct one. So there is some problems, or it's not. It doesn't have the accuracy rate yet, which it could have, or it could be better.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's partly because of the time constraints where I didn't train it for long enough. And also this was only the smaller data set with only 40,000 pictures. If I could use the other one, I think it would be even better results. However, I think just the training time of that would probably take 2 weeks of my computer running or something. And that would be quite, I would probably need better hardware, I guess. But I still think the net positive would be that you would save time when classifying fungi, for example. Because if you train it for 2 weeks, then you could speed up all results in the future, because it classified them really fast after it has been trained. So I think it's a very big net positive still. And here we also have some not very good results, and it says it's very certain. So this is a Russula vesca, a quite common fungi, both in Sweden and Denmark. And it thinks it is a family member of it as well. So that is, it's not perfect, this model still, but here we have yet another. It, for some reason, had a very hard time with this Russula family group. This is also another Russula vesca, and it gives another Russula decolorans, and it also has a low certainty. In this case, it has a low certainty that it is this one. instead.
Do you know what feature it is that it should be able to pick up to separate the fungi in this family?
Well, this is fungi. They are both in the same family, but this one I will show, the last Russula vesca that I have taken from Nina's dataset. It is, and then it could predict it. And as Fredrik very, very wisely asked what features it should predict. And on this, the name in Swedish for this fungi is edge, Russula or whatever. And it has a very special edge to compare to the other Russulas. And on this picture, you can certainly see the edge or the lining from the gills and the hat. And that is very categorized on or specific for this fungi. And in this case, it actually got it. So maybe it was having a hard time to actually identify that edge on the other fungi, because they are, as you can see, maybe a bit harder to see on the other images.
So we have a question.
Oh.
Can you also see what would be the accuracy for the proper species? So I'm understanding this question as what it actually would be, the correct species. Maybe
I don't really understand the question.
Maybe Morten, you could elaborate.
Yes, I'm. Let's say now you see the wrong name with a kind of certainty.
Yeah.
Would be nice to also see what would be the certainty for the proper name, if you know the proper name.
Yeah. Yes.
Can the system provide that, or does it only?
Yes. So it has a for all the species in this data set. So 182, it will have a pseudo certainty of it, and this certainty they will have it for Russula vesca, for example. It will require some live coding to show it right now, which I think would be quite hard to do, but it's definitely possible. I have just decided it has for every species for all the fungi. So yeah, the rest of the percent here are for the other fungi, and it's distributed in a special way. However, I have just now decided to not show it, but it's a very good question. Thank you. And so that was the case for these ones. And now I'm also going to show what happens in this case when you put in a fungi that is not in the data set. Because right now we have no unknown or not particular fungi. And what happens then? And it shows the one, maybe not limitation, but the need for you and you as researchers and scientists and experts in your field really have to communicate and talk with the people that work with AI, especially because in this case it is a Cortinarius sanguinensis, and in this case it predicts very, very wrong, because there is no Cortinarius sanguinensis in this data set. So it can't know that mushroom because it has never seen this. And if this could happen, like, you want to be sure that you kind of cover these problems that could happen, I guess. Because if let's say you have a fungi that you want to be classified, and it looks a bit similar to maybe a species that is edible or not edible, and it predicts something completely differently. If you use that app as your average human or whatever, and you don't know, and you trust that, in this case, that could have huge implications. And it shows one of the ethical questions with AI, and how you really have to, one of the limitations that you can't always trust it, and you also have to have a good collaboration with the people that work with AI so that they know how to handle these things, and also just know some limitations of it.
I'm thinking if there would be an image that would have no mushroom in it,
Yeah,
what would happen as for now?
I don't know. I haven't actually tested that, so that's a very good
But the
question.
only possible output categories are different kinds.
Yeah.
of fungi.
So it would classify it as some kind of fungi. So that's an improvement that could be made to this model in the future. It would be to include that case, or unknown as well.
Yeah.
And now 2 more, just because I think this is kind of fun and nice to look at. So here, Mycena pura. It's a very nice fungi, and it got it correctly. It was not very certain of that, but it still got the name correct there as well. And this Amanita vaginata we have already seen, but yeah, as I said, it got the correct one. And yes, so that was that demonstration of using Piquet et al.'s models, where I trained it on their open source data, and then deployed the model here in this Jupyter notebook, and used it on Nina's data to classify the fungi. And well, do you have any questions? Or here are some sources if you would like to read up more on it.
You'll get the links in the presentation as well. So
Yeah.
you don't have to copy it letter by letter right now.
Material will be sent.
But I think I can stop sharing now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
if any questions come up, you're free to ask us both in the chat and also when we get back, right, Maria?
Yeah, I think we should have a break, let's say until 15:30.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. So see you then. Thank you.
How is everybody's Monday?
I think they're on break.
Yes, but somebody said in the chat that it was boring.
Oh, okay.
That's sad.
Yeah.
Or
We're hoping that this lights up the Monday a little bit.
at least a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a pretty nice Monday at least, so that's I'm happy about that.
That's good, Carl.
What about yours, Maria?
It's been, I'm still recovering, but so it's been, it's still a bit of an effort to bring myself through an 8-hour workday, but yeah, it's good.
Nice.
And you, Marcus?
Good, good. I've had a good weekend, although I was unsuccessful because I wanted to go cross-country skiing, but the weather didn't allow it. It's too icy in Sweden, well, in Uppsala right now.
Well, it's very nice to hear that this meeting is enlightening to you, or enlightening. It's nice. Do you monitor fungi at your research station? Do you know that? Have you knew?
He could be on break.
Yeah, but it's the one answering. Don't you read the chat?
Yes, I do. Yeah. How's your Monday, Fredrik?
My Monday, I think it's quite a nice Monday for me. I've prepared a little bit for this, answered some emails, had a walk to the office because we're at the office today, and there was beautiful weather. So yeah, it's nice getting the sun back in Sweden, and
yeah, it's really nice.
Craft colleagues are also based somewhere quite northern. I guess you're also enjoying the return of the sun.
So have you been at the office, Fredrik?
We're at
Previously?
we're at the office, all three of us, Marcus and Colin.
Yeah, no, but I mean, previously to this, have you been at the office several times, for instance, the past month?
Maybe like 2 or 3 times or something since New Year's.
Okay.
I had a friend actually from university who's just started working at a different division, but still here at April. So when he had his first day, I took the chance to get to the office and meet him and show him around a little bit. His manager is here in Solna, not in Uppsala. So needed a tour guide, and I volunteered.
Oh, nice.
Are you anything at the office, or have you stayed away from here since since New Year's as well?
Yeah, I've been staying away from the office for a while, you can say that. Yeah.
Haven't seen our new beautiful logo on the facade. How do you say that in English?
Facade.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
I felt like, but it's a bit odd to say.
Saying it that way, it sounds very pretentious. Yes.
Yeah. it's a pretentious word.
Yeah.
As it is, isn't it? Even in Swedish.
Yeah.
You don't have a facade on your ordinary house.
Yeah, no.
If you live in a villa.
You have like an outer wall, basically.
Even though this discussion is very fruitful for everyone to listen to, I think I'll begin to share my screen.
Yeah, I think time is 30.
Yes, let's see. Can you see my screen?
No, I can see it.
So yeah, I'll begin, and if there's anyone coming back from a coffee break or anything, yeah, just join us. So I have been working for the past years in the space with space applications, and looking at how one can use machine learning for retrieving information on what is happening on our Earth's surface. It can look a little bit like this. So what we know from the pre-study is that some of you have already been working with satellite data for your studies or your work, or maybe you have used it personally. Most people do on a regular basis, but I'm also assuming that you use a lot of weather data and other types of data. So, but I'm going to look a little bit more of how can we use the space segment and the satellite data to a further extent, where we can do our own modifications and do our analysis, and more so use results which have come from earlier research and AI algorithms that have well, basically gained into products that are ready to use for analysis. So what makes what is the increased opportunity for finding information from space? Well, to begin with, I would say that the sensors are a bit special, since we can have instruments on board satellites in orbit that give us an increased opportunity than what we would do with our own eyes or using any camera that we have on our phone or anything similar. So we have sensors such as that can measure infrared, shortwave infrared, coastal aerosol, atmosphere data. We can also see, and that's just for the optical data. We also have other examples like radar data, etc. And also maybe the stating the obvious, but having the aerial and larger perspective, as well as the orthogonal perspective. Food for thought, there exists no countries or boundaries in space. So it's basically, as for now, all open. So if we begin with the sensors, so there are major opportunities, and there exists a large amount of data. And this is both historical data and also data which is created today, data that is created in a higher speeds than what we human can make use of or possibly examine. Also, the sensors give us extra dimensions, the ones mentioned earlier, like outside what is from the human visible spectrum. As an example, if you see the 4 images to the right here, using just the true color, the red, blue, and green, we wouldn't be able to actually see the forest fires, which this is actually on happening in these images. These are forest fires from Gävleborg. This is middle of Sweden, 2018, and using these different dimensions, the infrared or near infrared and shortwave infrared, we can be able to detect forest fire and visualize this in a way so it's intuitive to us, which you can see down to the right there, where it's made in a composition, so it's easily interpreted. And so how do we then use this? So there exists many services and products. And when it comes to the data, most are too expensive for users or companies and even countries. But some exist open source for everyone to use. And the best example are derived from the European Union's Earth Observation Program, and where there's vast amounts of global satellite data, which is available through some services that I would like to also emphasize in my demonstration here. So these two are made by a company called Synergize. We have on the top there, we have Sentinel Hub, and on the bottom right, we have Earth Observation Browser. And these are tools that you can use in your internet browser and are complementary to each other. The trade-offs between these two, I'm not going to go into that too much right now. But what I would instead like to do is to demonstrate some examples that exploit satellite data using machine learning. Because when it comes to the satellite data, there's a lot of data, and to be able to harvest out of this vast amount of data, we need to do it in an automatic way. So by using modern tools, we'll be able to do this in a good way, in a scalable fashion, and then we don't need to do it for ourselves. And luckily, these tools exist freely available, and we can use these models. Let's see. And so we can use these tools to, in a good manner, be able to work together. So we can learn from the satellite data by using modern tools such as machine learning, as well as we can assist the machine learning models to learn from us by manual evaluation. And so all we need to do is to set up the tool. And we can also use models that will exploit this data in a good fashion that someone has already put together. And this can be referred to as the term transfer learning, which is a popular term in the machine learning community. And this is something that we have shown a little bit today using existing solutions and machine learning models that have already been pre-trained. And I think we also mentioned this a little bit in our earlier workshop. So transfer learning can imply that we do not have to reinvent the wheel every time we would like to extract new information. And this is good because putting together tools and models of analysis for our applications can be very tedious and could require many prerequisites in regards of IT knowledge and also domain knowledge, understanding satellite data, and so forth. So standing on the vast community that we can use the results and the products of the community or earlier research. And these results, they exist freely and are open source for anyone to use. We can adapt, we can share, and we can even be invited to publish our own scripts, which you can see to the bottom right there. These results can come in many forms, but what I would like to show for you today is what this repository to our right here in the screenshot we see, they refer to them as custom scripts. And these can be results of people like us here interested, and can also be results of publications, peer-reviewed. And also it could be results of what the Copernicus program, so called the Sentinel Hub custom script contests. So there'll be something like a contest where everyone has a task, maybe to find dump sites, and then the best one will have the prize of earning the community's respect and also get their custom script posted on this repository. So the community is very helpful, and I have to say that the qualities when it comes to these scripts can really vary, and this is depending also on the different cases. So one can think that, okay, monitoring glaciers at one place is very different from monitoring it at another place. It makes a lot of sense. There are different parameters that really can vary, even though it's the same thing, the same object of interest that we're interested in. So, but so with some cherry picking, one can really find good tools. And I also want to mention that depending on the satellites, we see a list here with satellites that we can and sources that we can get satellite data from. And depending on the satellite, it can really vary when it comes to the both how dependent we are of finding something that doesn't have a lot of cloud cover. As mentioned in the break, I mean, it's really nice that the sun is shining up on us in Uppsala again, but for some periods of time, it can be difficult to find good data when there's a lot of clouds. Luckily, so when it comes to optical data, one very known source is Sentinel-2. It's twin satellites that orbit Earth. That's one example of optical data. But luckily, maybe we can also use something like radar data, which is a source of Sentinel-1. And when it comes to radar data, we don't need to care about the clouds as much for the sensors to be able to extract data, and also for us to retrieve information at a later stage. And also when it comes to the different platforms and the constellations and satellite, it really depends on the temporal axis. So as the previous example, Sentinel-2 is a very good source for optical data, but is really lacking when it comes to retrieving data in the farmost northern latitudes of Earth, which is not great for us, but we also study things that are less than just the far north latitudes. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to find some tools that and data sources that could fit you. So what I would like to do is that I would like to share some use cases and examples, and I will actually start with something that is radar data. And so this is an example of how it can look browsing this site. And here we have even a link to the Earth observation browser. So let's see. Can I move this pane? So you don't see it, but my zoom pane is like really disturbing me.
Jag tror att du kan dra tag i om du klickar utanför knappen.
Oh, yeah. So here we find SAR data, which is radar data, synthetic aperture radar. And just by going through here, we can retrieve, given our time and given when, and we can really move around. We can see here if we really zoom out, we can see that the coverage really vary. So this is for this particular day. Another day, maybe it's not even accessible. It ends up being in between, so that the sensors are swath aren't wide enough. But we can see here a little bit what this custom script is doing. So this custom script is a composite, which is made so making this radar data to be relatable, basically, so we can see it in a good manner. Where sea and ice are mostly in the blue spectrum, and so this is open source, public, and put on the platform by an author, and according to this author, some peculiar features should be shown in red. I'm not an expert. Maybe this is something that I can leave to you, monitoring ice and water and glaciers. But maybe this is something that could be interesting. This is at a very large scope. We can see we got 10 kilometers down here. And what the author is also specifying is that this custom script can be useful for identifying the difference between flat ice, rough ice, first year ice, multi-year ice, as well as open water and wind, etc. So we can move around here. This is not going to be very great results because I've been looking into this, so we have to look around and find a little bit. But I just want to show you what you can do just by moving around here. So we can choose different dates also. This is JavaScript code, which is a very functional code. It's in the taxonomy of functional programming, and these parameters are results from what this author has put together. And we can move around. This is Earth observation browser, but that is all for this one, I think. I will also see if I can just give you as well. Let's see if we can move this pane again. So I want to just see how it looks here. So this is the same thing you saw from the screenshot, and there are so many things that we can look at. Maybe you can see some things that is applicable to your research or your interests, or something like we want to find out when the snow is gone, so we can actually get there by using our means for transportation. I want to emphasize this one a little bit. So this one in particular shows all the different bands. There are different other places where you can find these sort of specifications, but you can choose to return basically all the bands of the Sentinel-2 optical data. And you can also see that we have quite good resolution given that it's freely. But we'll share these links with you, so feel free to look it through yourselves. What I will do is that I will also blow this up a little bit of interesting examples that I have found. Interesting or beautiful looking. It's up to the subjects of this presentation. And so this is called the normalized difference chlorophyll index, and you can see here that we have a research station which is a part of this Interact network, and this is an index which will give high values in yellow and low values in blue. So by examination, I've seen that this is water, and this is in really the northern eastern part of Russia, and looks through the chlorophyll content. Depending on different bands, there's more functions than we can see up here to the left.
So it just goes by wavelength, that lots of green, lots of chlorophyll.
Yes. So for this one in particular is an example of where a study has, let's see, so this one where we sort of learn things from exploration of data and machine learning, and we get to these different results that are printed into a function in JavaScript, and which gives us more information than what the eyes can see. So this script that we see here works great for viewing snowfall in the autumn month, and also when the snow retreats in the spring. And also this script can be used to visualize glacier retreat or advance in polar or high mountain regions. That's what the author gives for the short abstract of this script in particular. And you can see some specifications there. And again, I'm not going to go into looking too much into, okay, what actually do we see? But I'm going to wait for you, well, basically provide these examples to you so you can explore for yourselves.
It could be worth noting that categorise is right next to Tarfara Research Station, which is part in Interactive Community.
I think we have it up to the right here somewhere, right? Tarfala?
Yeah, somewhere.
Yeah,
probably.
And so I want to continue to this. So this is a paper which has resulted in one of these scripts as well, where they have created a fairly complex classification decision tree and been able to find these different parameters which are well suited to be able to do snow and clouds classification. We can although I mean, this looks really nice, we can see that this author has said that blue and red both represent different types of clouds. Although we can see here in this image that maybe that's not actually true. We can clearly see mountains and the structure of mountains. So this is one of those examples where maybe this is something that needs to be made with some minor changes to better represent this area. And this area is above the Queen Ranges in Canada, which is also part of the Interact research network. And to keep on the pace, this is in close association, this region to the Barron Arctic Research Center in Alaska. And this evaluation script is fairly simple, but you can see the legends here. This will represent the evapotranspiration levels composite. So it's based on the premise that the higher level of absorption of water vapor and humidity, and the lower level of evapotranspiration, well, for those, the colors will be darker, basically. Yes, so that's another example. And more in close regards to what I've been working about with a little bit more, looking at forest cut and temporal detection scripts. So this is something that looks in a temporal dimension as well, and will signify in red here what pixels that have been cut. More about exactly what the time frame is, you can find in the documentation. All this is very well documented, although, as mentioned, some outliers, not so much. The quality will definitely vary. And also here we can see, I mean, this is supposed to be in November. We can see some smoke coming here. So I'm assuming maybe there's someone having a very large barbecue, or yeah, anything like that. Perhaps it even is a forest fire. And I would like to mention that they have also said that, I mean, it can be confusing with crops, and the best way is to use the transfer learning approach, or maybe the evaluation of actually looking, okay, so was there actually a forest fire recorded there? Maybe there's not any recordings of that, but to take everything with a little bit of a pinch of salt. And then I also want to give you this image. So this looks at data from the past month and creates a composite of the means of everything. So, I mean, to the down right, we can see that maybe the snow has actually started to melt, or it's actually begun to start to freeze. That's probably more, given the date, probable. And these are just some examples of many that exists on this site. So what I would like to leave you with is that when it comes to these tools, I mean, they're very good and one can try them, and that would be level 1, according to me. And it's very possible to play around, and there's a lot of different how-tos, and development is always happening in this area. People are very interested in our Earth and to be able to retrieve information. And these are open source, and when it comes to these tools, and the community is vast. And one can also play around and do their own custom processing. And there's the interfaces that I've shown are very good for drag and drop. One can even add functional code like JavaScript themselves to reach level 3, perhaps, to create your own custom script from scratch. Maybe it's something that you have seen in your research and you want to try out. Maybe it's something that you have created from machine learning and data exploration that you want to add on to, or maybe you want to try out and stand on the shoulders of the vast community. There's a lot of possibilities to use these tools. And these are in the Sentinel Hub Playground or Earth Observation Browser. These are examples of freely available services that you can use. But if you want to do as both Carl and Fredrik have shown, you can modify it even more, and you can use it for what you want to do. You can use it in Colab using platforms of compute storage. You can locally use your Jupyter notebook, or you can use other forms of development environments to reach some. I mean, either you can download, in level 4 they're specifying downloading images from the Earth Observation Browser is more applicable to use for that, and then add these and then incorporate analysis tools. But I would really want to mention that when using the API that are accessible for this Copernicus or Sentinel data, they're very good. So I've added some documentation there, and there's a lot of how-tos, and it's very in a very nice manner. They can really show you how one would use these APIs and incorporate these to easier be able to access satellite data, to be able to use perhaps machine learning libraries or satellite data to contribute to the community. And I mean, that would really be beneficial. And I think when it comes to let's see, maybe it seems like it's far away, but that is not actually the case, because I mean, I know that maybe it's scary with code for some. I can understand that, but when it comes to the documentation, there's a lot of copy pasting, and it's really good when it comes to understanding how to do. I mean, you basically just copy paste this, and you can follow this in a very good way, and you can also incorporate machine learning and everything from these documentations. And this is just one example. So I mean, for the scope of this demo, we have reached maybe 1.5, and I'm going to leave you there. And I hope that I've spurred some interest to use these tools, and an interest of utilizing satellite data. And before I would like to conclude this part of the demonstration of satellite data, maybe I can open up to some questions if there's anything like that. Has anything been specified in the?
No.
Nope.
Maybe I can ask a quick question. You mentioned temporal changes and so on. What the possibilities with that are obviously limited by how frequently they take images of how big is the variation depending on where you're looking on the globe?
It's a good question, and it's a difficult. I mean, it's very cautial. I mean, it depends on really the time and everything, but and these interfaces are really good when it comes to looking at data. I'm going to show you maybe an example where you can look for yourself. So, I mean, even if you would start using these APIs to be able to just do something like this, using these APIs, I would still recommend using the Earth observation browser to be able to. It's a good tool.
Feel before starting.
Yeah, I mean, discover, because look at this. For example, this is the optical data, so it really depends on the cloud coverage. So here, if you look at here, the calendar days, we can see when we start setting what's acceptable, that data will, temporarily will vary. And these things are made, from the whole thing, but maybe you're interested in one specific hotel that you're gonna go to in Rome, as for this case, and you can find.
And I want to know how many sun hours will this hotel have.
Yeah, you can set up an app and see how that differs from maybe somewhere in Verona, or if you're looking for sun. But studies have shown that 60% of all optical data is covered in clouds. So some manual evaluation and trying to find good areas of interest and by using these tools would be a good way to work with this data and these tools.
How does that the cloud thing, because we talked about, or you talked about earlier, the thing where it had that problem differentiating mountains from clouds. Is that because Rome is probably easier to differentiate from clouds than mountains, but since Interact will deal with a lot of snow covered areas, how much trouble could that cause?
Well, it really depends on the custom script, because these custom scripts are made for these specific cases for the most part. Some are more resilient to when it comes to the area of which is it used, and that really depends on which study or for which project these custom scripts are made. So cherry picking, and also, I mean, let's see if we have something that could be, maybe this thing could be nice. Maybe this will take some time to actually load, but what I would like to show you is that, I mean, maybe this can be made with some manual evaluation, and I mean, it's also possible to, just by doing these kind of things, to do your own processing, even given that maybe there is a custom script that is made
you can tweak it.
Yeah, I mean, you can
Yeah.
tweak it, and you can even change in the code for the different tools. So you can do a lot of things with these tools for your specific case. Any more questions?
No.
In that case, I would like you to go to Menti. And use this code and answer the question.
Let's see if we can get some more participants entering the room. Hopefully.
How long is the countdown?
I haven't started it yet. I can start it soon.
How long is it? Do you know?
1 minute.
Okay, then you can.
Now we're 8 at least.
I think, yeah.
Okay, I
Start
think
it.
I will start now.
It's important to win this one. Remember that.
So would you rather visit the International Space Station, be an Earth observation expert, or visit the AFRY team in Uppsala? From an Earth observation perspective, visiting the International Space Station wouldn't give you that much with the human visible spectrum. But if you could use the tools, then you can really learn from what is happening on Earth's surface.
But there is a correct answer to this question, just so you know.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Only 2 persons were right.
Yeah, so there's a correct answer here. So I'm sorry for the rest of you.
Because this is obviously the place you can learn the most about.
Yeah,
about,
it was a trick
yeah.
question. So
Yeah.
that was the whole point of this talk. Yeah. So what we will do is that we'll continue, and now we are to look at something completely different. So moving from optical radar image data, we go into this part of the demonstration, which is focused on digitizing analog text and to summarize the text. And this we will do by using 2 different machine learning tools. One is optical character recognition, which from an image of a text image of text will create a digital text. So this is referred to as digitizing. And then also use natural language processing with state-of-the-art tools. So these tools that we have picked as the state-of-the-art tools are created by Google Vision and OpenAI GTP3. These are well-trained models and state-of-the-art tools. The optical character recognition works for both handwritten and printed digital text, as long as it's in a photo format, so somewhat digital. And also I would like to mention that there's a need to both choose. There are different parameters for these models that one can choose to use these tools, and for an optimal output, these needs to be chosen given the type of text. And this is something that you can see in the documentation as well, if you click on these links here. And I also would like to begin by saying that if you would like the original code, it's possible to access that by running this cell here, and it will be added to your files. I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to just do this, show on English, in English. And this is thanks to Maja Linderholm, our master's thesis student working for our work package in Interact 3. And the data she used was from Stockholm University and Tarfala Research Station. So thank you for that. This is an image that we took when we actually collected the data for our master thesis. But so this shows a little bit of how this demo is built up. So right now we're in Colab. This is hosted by Google. So and it's freely accessible as long as you have a Google account. So right now I'm logged into mine. I've fetched an image of this analog document, and this will be imported into Google Colab and be converted into text and then summarized for us to see the output in this demo. And to do that, we need 2 different keys to access these services. And I'll show you how one get by creating these keys as well. Also, there will be some instructions for you to use. But first of all, you start by fetching and installing the tools. So what we do here is that we install Google Cloud Vision and OpenAI tools. And let's see if it will ask us. Yes, it will ask us to restart the runtime. And we can see up here, it's initializing again. Now it's restarted. Let's see, this pane. And as a reminder, and then we'll import the tools. Now we get to the fun part, which can be a little bit tricky. So this is when it comes to adding your API keys, and this is going to be the most difficult thing of this demonstration. So, but what you will do, the tricky part is to actually get it to function in the applicable format. So I'll just jump ahead here a little bit. So you want it to function and have these formats. That's what these services are requiring. So first, these are free to some extent, and some examples instructions can be found below here. So what you do is that you create an account and you start to create the keys. So what you will do is that you will go into the Google Cloud Console. You have your account here, and you will begin by, there's a lot of documentation, but you will end up to this page, and you would like to, in that case, create a new key. So you can see here, you're in this pane here, service accounts and keys, and you will create a new key. And it will be asking you whether you would like it in a JSON format or a P12, and you want it in a JSON format. So what you do is that this is a key that is created, and you want to open that key, and you want to copy all of this. So I'm copying now, and then I'm going back. So here's some reminder and documentation. Then I will paste these things there, and that's for Google Cloud Platform. So the documentation will help you in order to get to this place. But this is just to actually the most difficult thing, to actually get it into there. And also here we have same thing with OpenAI. So they're very good when it comes to documentation. You create the key, and then you copy the key. And this is something that you then put into here. And now we have the keys that we need. So again, you have some more information here. But so what we need to do is that we need to run this. So this environment knows these different keys. And then we have some help functions that will just create this in an applicable format. And we see that they popped up here. So it will take these things and it will create them in applicable formats for the tools to actually function. And then we will just set the keys so this environment knows that we're using these two. And I've defined some useful functionalities here. So what I can leave you with here. So when it comes to the different parameters that maybe you want to be able to modify for your case in particular, you have these responses that you get from this case that this is the document text detection, and there's documentations of this posted in the links up there. And these are the parameters that maybe you want to, as an example, do for your application in particular. And the same thing when it comes to using the summarization. So we use something that is called Text DaVinci 001 engine. And this works really good for this case, but it wouldn't maybe do for all different types of tasks. Anyways, so what we want to do is that we want to upload an image. And I've selected, so this is a reminder, uploaded files will be deleted when runtime is recycled. This is good to know because this is hosted on Google, so they don't want to have a lot of files stored for them, so they basically erase your stuff. So it can be good to also, if you do your own solutions, to save these things for yourself. And
don't use this as a backup.
Yeah, so back it up. Since you're on cloud for free, they won't save it for you. This will be accessible for you. But if you upload these files or anything like that, they will be deleted after you stop using this. So what we'll do next is that we will be running the optical character recognition. And this will create a text document, which is soon to be written here. Let's see.
There's a question in the chat.
Yes.
And it's, could you possibly share the link to the OCR Colab notebook here?
I will share it, although yeah, I'll leave you with the experimentation to afterwards. And you can also see this recording when you would, if you need some assistance, and also get in touch with me. So anyways, I'll start with just showing you maybe this. So it's pretty difficult to interpret what this says. Maybe you need magnifying glass or really to understand Arthur Conan Doyle's handwriting. But I want to emphasize these. You see different things in the sort of margins here, which also show up here. And then we have some text. It doesn't look great. I mean, this is maybe not the thing that you would read to your 5-year-old niece. I mean, it's very strange looking. And what I want to show with that is that even though it looks a bit strange and we have strange characters, this GPT-3, which we're running here, it takes the text and gets a response, will still be able to give us an output. So this is the original text, which we have already seen. But if we go down, for the most part, it gives us a very good summarization. The crew of a ship sailing north of Iceland near John Mayer's Island observed what looked like an ice and woke the captain, who confirmed that it was in fact ice. The ship continued to sail north and eventually encountered more ice which surrounded the ship and stopped the progress. So, I mean, we can get some summarization from this. So, ta-da. And this is made for just one file. But what if we could modify this code to go through an entire folder of images and get us a full book in this format? And I also want to show you, so there are many tools that exist openly, freely available to some extent when it comes to OpenAI. And we have some things where we can translate, we can summarize to a second grader. We can have chatbots. I know that we can even print something like a movie title, and this will create emojis that will, the emphasis, well, basically be a representation by emojis of different things. So there are many different tools that one can use, and I also want to show you. So let's say you want to, well, for this demo, we used this summarization. So looking at here, this is exactly what was used when it comes to what was inside these functional, which you see here. That's what I posted there, but you can also add other things.
It could be worth noting that, like, as you mentioned, that the text that the OCR produced was maybe not very comprehensible. However, but the summation was pretty good, but I would not be able to read that text normally with my eyes, and yet that did a decent job at least.
And that's all thanks to the abstraction, which is made by GPT-3, the state of the art. So it's trained on a very, very large set of text data, and is able to understand abstract meaning. And there's a lot of development in that field as well, NLP and all. Do we have any questions for now? You see anything in the chat?
Not anything else other than the OCR sharing.
I'll share this document with you, and this is ready to run as long as you create first a Google account and also an OpenAI AI account, and the documentation exists to get here, and also the Google Cloud platform. It's another sort of place where you create an account from just Google Colab. But that's all from me for now. So thank you.
There is a question, another question. It says, would it be possible to use the OCR to digitize handwritten meteorological journals?
Yes, I would assume so. I would maybe, I mean, this is a case where I'm a bit uncertain of exactly how these meteorological journals look like. So given the text, the summarization will perform differently. So in that case, what you need to do is that maybe to play around or see if you can find something in the community where they have summarized journals, and see which of these settings to the request, which I showed you lastly here. So which settings will you be using? You remember DaVinci 001, maybe there's another setting that would work the best, but it's definitely possible, but then it depends on how well, basically.
One thing that might be of interest, I don't know how this meteorological data looks, but maybe you fill in some kind of table or something, and possibly you could use a step 4 if the table always looks the same, to extract different cells, or let's say in the table.
So there is actually a parse unstructured data. I don't know if maybe that could be something that could be useful, but I would look into these different there's this library that OpenAI has, and I mean, also there's examples, documentation, and there are many things that you can do. So I would definitely say yes, it's definitely possible even with tables. I see your comment as well.
Yeah, I do know that, for instance, AWS has specifically like algorithms to differentiate tables, and to actually recognize text in tables. So apparently there is a need from many people. So there are those services available. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay, thank you, Marcus. So I will take over now, the last 30 minutes or so. So let me share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm now going to talk about a very powerful machine learning tool. And it's called Azure Machine Learning Designer. And it is a graphical tool using machine learning algorithms by connecting on a visual canvas, connecting modules. And why is this even of interest? Basically, I wanted to bring this up, or we want to bring this up, because it's a way to easily learn the principles of ML. It's a good way to teach ML, but it also combines it with cutting edge cloud computing and a way to actually professionally deploy ML models and in prod or production. And yes, what is Azure to start with? Basically, it's Microsoft's cloud computing solution. And let's just say we are not in any way affiliated with Microsoft, of course. But this Azure is the second biggest cloud computing solution after AWS. But AWS does not offer a similar graphical tool as Azure. So that's why we have chosen to demonstrate this. And since we are doing Azure and Microsoft, so what is Microsoft's definition? So for them, ML is a technique that uses mathematics and statistics to create a model that can predict unknown values. And mathematically, ML is thought or described as a function, fx equals y. And we call x features, we call a label. And you can say that the function is the machine learning model. And in most cases, your data requires quite some heavy pre-processing. That usually takes the longest time. And for instance, we want to also perhaps identify the relevant features. We need to perhaps clean our data from strange values. We need to take care of missing values. And sometimes we need to perhaps normalize our data, and it will be very important for our results. And then you apply, as we have said many times, you apply an algorithm to fit your data and train your model. And afterwards, you evaluate the performance of your model. And then when you're happy, you will deploy your model. And the model can then be used to make predictions from your new input values or features. And yes, so as we mentioned in the last slide, the input values or the X values are called features, and the Y value is called a label. So these X values are called features, Y value are called label. And so in this case, what features should we include? Yeah, the author is not very important to predict our Y value. The number of book pages and the cost per unit are probably relevant. And how, when we have this data set, would we divide the training and test data sets? Basically, we do it by rows. Maybe it's obvious, maybe not, but we need to do it randomly. And I'm bringing all these things up because it will help us very much when we are using this tool to understand what all the different terminology is and how it works. And so yeah, so basically, let's go into what is exactly cloud computing. So you can say it's a delivery of cloud computing services. So it includes everything from service, storage, software, analytics, intelligence, etc. And the great thing is that you only pay for what you need, and you can automatically scale up or down on the resources you need. And you can get the performance you need for your desired task. So in other words, you do not need to invest in a bunch of hardware and software beforehand and then not knowing whether you will use them, or if you have invested too little or not, you pay just for what you use. And I would also like to say just a few words about security, because you might think that, oh, it's very insecure. Of course, you need to be aware of things, but at the same time, it's not like you are just putting your data in free text out there for anyone to see or grab it. So usually your data is more secure than on your local environment. We have weak password policies, security vulnerabilities in your local environment, and improperly configured backups, for instance. And also it's worth mentioning that Azure and other cloud computing services, Google, of course, and Amazon support various compliance regulations, including financial services, government, healthcare, etc. So they take security very seriously, but of course you wouldn't perhaps protect your national secrets on the cloud. And the machine learning designer, which I will soon give a demonstration of, is a tool in Azure, and it lets you add and connect modules on a visual canvas, as stated previously. And a little bit about the evaluation metrics, because when we have actually put together our model and we want to see how well it performs, it's very good to know exactly how can we evaluate our model? How well is it? How well does it perform? And one of the most, how do you say, not the basic, but most fundamental ways of measuring is the confusion matrix. And basically it measures true positives, true negatives. Basically, if the predicted class was actually the correct class, that's a good thing. True negatives also if the negative class was actually the predicted negative class. So that's what the confusion matrix does. And you can also calculate the accuracy by taking all the correct values, TP plus TM, and divide it by all the values. And that's how you get your accuracy. You have something about precision and recall. And I'm not going to go into that in so much detail. You can actually read it. Precision and recall will be very relevant when you look at the RSC curve. And RSC stands for Receive Operating Characteristics. And what we can look at, instead of just seeing what exactly does it mean, is that how does a perfect RSC curve look like? It's the orange. You want your blue curve as close to the orange as possible. Then you will know that, okay, my model performed really well. And basically, if you have an AUC, if you had a curve that is below the dotted line here, then it would mean that your model would perform worse than random guessing. So you don't need to, know exactly what all of this means. You just need to know, okay, so how can I see if my model is good or not? Kind of rule of thumb. That's a good thing to at least have in mind. And the demonstration soon will be of a classification problem, of course, but of course we also have evaluation metrics for regression. I won't go into this. We have mean absolute error, root mean square error, coefficient of determination. So if you are doing a regression model, then you will need to also look into these evaluation metrics to see how your model performs, basically. So yes, I will now go into a demonstration how this tool works, and hopefully it should be easy or fundamental enough for you to actually repeat the steps if you're interested. And what I'm going to show is that you import an example dataset, you split it into training and test datasets, you pick one of many algorithms out. There are like several algorithms you can just pick and choose. you train the ML model, you evaluate the model according to the evaluation criteria I just showed you a little bit of. And then you can deploy the model online on a computer cluster, a Kubernetes cluster, as it is commonly referred to. And then you establish an endpoint to which API calls can be made. Basically, you can, reach your model by HTTP and send your features. What kind of predictions will you get back? And yes, so what should I say? I would just also like to say that since this tool is very comprehensive and very powerful, and it's combined with cutting edge cloud computing, and to be able to cram as much useful information as possible with this demonstration. And I have only used a simple built-in data set. And I also needed to pre-record this demonstration since it will take some time between the various stages, like 5 or 6 minutes every time I do something. And that's because we are setting up advanced computing clusters, we are doing some training, we are doing evaluation and deploying the models. So yes, so basically we have a pre-recorded video of this demonstration. And if you have any questions, the easiest is to post them in the chat or wait until the demonstration is finished. So yes, I will hand it over to Frederick to play the video.
Yes, I'll start it right away. And then
Okay, so let's start this demonstration on the Microsoft Azure Machine Learning. So the easiest way to start is to actually go open a browser, search for Microsoft Azure. And let's click it. And as you can see, here is Azure, the cloud service from Microsoft.
Okay.
And you can try Azure for free. You'll get $200 credit for a month where you can try it out properly. And a lot of popular services free. So it doesn't hurt to actually try it out. And here are also some information that is that outlines what you can do on Azure. So let me just pause this and I will log in. Okay, so we are back and we are logged into the Microsoft Azure portal. The first thing we always need to do is we need to create a resource. And in this case, we are going to use the machine learning resource. And we put create. We need to pick our subscription and then we create a new resource group. So basically these resource groups contains all the resources we are going to use, as the name implies, and it makes it also very easy to delete all the resources we will create, and that will, when they run, they cost money, so it's very good to just delete every resource at once when we are done. Okay, so we created a new resource group. We need to create a new workspace, ML workspace. We have our region. We'll just use the one selected for us, but of course we can use something a little bit closer if you want to. And we have some associated storage account key vault that is created automatically for us. And here we have a you'll need to create also a container registry. So okay. Yes, so we will take review and create. Here we have review. We will put create, and this will take some time, so I will pause. Okay, we are back. It says your deployment is complete. So let's just go to resource and click this button. And here we are. And we have our workspace, MLWS, and we can now see the information pertaining to this resource group, ML test, subscription, storage, registry, everything associated with what we need to run this. So let's just press the button, Launch Studio. And here we are in our machine learning studio. And what we do now is that we choose Create New. And we choose Create Pipeline. Okay, so we have created our pipeline, and then we can either import datasets, but we also have a bunch of sample datasets that we are going to make use of right now. And we will just pick the first one. If we right-click, we can preview the dataset. And here it is. And as you can see, we have quite a few features here. We have age, work class, education, and then we have our label, income. So basically we have a bunch of various features, and they are used as predictors, able to predict whether a person will have an income that is less than 50K or more than 50K. And so this we will use as our training dataset. And then when we try out our machine model that has been trained with this dataset, we can actually input a bunch of these features, and then we can predict whether a person will have an income above or below 50K. With all datasets, it's very important that we don't have any missing values. And Azure Machine Learning Studio is very powerful. You can do a lot of manipulations, and I will not go into this at this time because it would take too much time, but it's extremely convenient to manipulate datasets here in this tool. And as I said, very important with no missing values, and we should always make sure that the data actually makes sense. And we can, for instance, pick various columns here, and we can get some statistics, mean, median, min, max, standard deviation, etc. That can be quite interesting to have a look at to see how our data set is. Let's continue with our pipeline. We have our data set here. Now we are going to look for the split data module. Here it is. We can just drag and drop as before. We can connect these two modules together. This split data module basically will split this dataset into a training set and a test dataset. So we will need, for our machine model to be good, we will need a lot of data to train it so we can do some prediction later on. And usually we have, what's common is that we use about 70% training data, 30% test data. So 0.7 should be good. And let's just press submit for this. And we have 1 errors detected. So select compute target in settings panel. Yes, we will, to be able to do anything at all with this pipeline, we will actually need to have some computing resources. So let's just pick a compute cluster, which is a little bit more powerful than a compute instance. And then, since we don't have any compute clusters, we haven't created one yet, we will use create Azure ML compute cluster. So I will basically just use the default ones. Of course, there are many various types of virtual machines we can use with this compute cluster, but I will use a quite cheap one. And you can see the cost here, $0.73 per hour. And yeah, dedicated CPU. Of course, the GPU is much more powerful, but I don't want to waste too much money on this. And I put the default here and I press next. And I put the compute name. Camelot compute cluster. And I would like to actually have, because it's quicker to have a minimum number of nodes running at all times. As long as I will make sure to remember to delete it after I'm done. And then let's create this one. Let's select our compute cluster. So I had to pause because it needed to be provisioned first, and it took a little bit of time. And now I can actually select our Azure ML compute cluster. So now let's press submit. And we will need to create a new experiment. And submit to actually run this pipeline. And again, this will take a little bit of time, so I will actually pause this here. Okay, so this has now finished, and our dataset has been split into two. One training dataset of 70% and one test dataset of 30%. So we can preview both dataset 1 and 2, dataset 1 on the left, dataset 2 on the right. And here we have dataset 1, 22,000 rows and 9.768 rows. So you can see this is 30%, and it has been divided randomly. Yes, so now, excuse me, let's continue. We will drag in another module, the train model. And we will also take an algorithm. So what we have is a classification problem, and we have a bunch of machine learning algorithms to choose from. Here we have regression algorithm, clustering algorithms, and then we have classification algorithms. And we will, in this case, pick a 2-class boosted decision tree. And I picked this because it's simple, and obviously because we only have 2 classes, and it gives decent results. But of course, as always, a lot of work goes into picking the right model for the problem, and you will need to experiment with this. Yes, okay, so we put our first dataset, our training dataset, to the right here with the train model. We put the algorithms. We have this warning triangle, and we will actually need the label column. So basically, what are we going to predict? So we take edit column, take enter column name, and we want to predict the income, so we need to pick that one. Okay, and the next thing is that we will search for a score model. Here we have it. So basically, this score model is a module that scores your trained model against the test data that we already know to see how well the model performs. Finally, we will use a module called evaluate model. And this is the final step, and this module will actually calculate and show us some interesting statistics, so we can, as it's called, evaluate how well our model performs. And what we are going to do now is basically we will submit this, and usually it takes about, or at least it has done so previously for me, 7, 8, 9 minutes. And I would use the experiment and submit. And I will now pause this until it's finished. Okay, so we are back again, and the pipeline has now finished. As you can see, we have completed on all the modules. And now when we want to analyze our model, we'll go to evaluate, and we pick preview data and evaluation results. And just like we looked into previously during the presentation, we have a few metrics here. We have the ROC curve, and as we know, it should be as close to 1 as possible for it to have a perfect result. We have the precision plotted against our recall, and we also have our confusion matrix. As you can see, we have our true positives and our true negatives. And the accuracy, as you can see here, it's 87%. So these are very good metrics to analyze our machine learning model. And obviously, you can look into various different algorithms and see if you can get better results. Okay. So basically, we now have our trained model, and we now want to use the model, and using it, we need to first deploy our machine learning model in order to see what outputs we can get from real data from the model. For this, we create inference pipeline, and we take real-time inference pipeline. So here we will have web service input instead and web service outputs added. So in this case, you can invoke the model. And to create the inference pipeline, we use submit. We take the existing experiment and press submit. And this will take some time to run, so I will pause and soon return when it's done. Okay, so this is now finished, and the next step we need to do is to deploy. And for this, for the inference and setting up a real-time endpoint, we actually need a Kubernetes inference cluster, and we need to actually set that up before we can set up the real-time endpoint. So let's create that one. And basically, the inference cluster is used to take in the requests and perform the required processing for the required results. So let's go to compute. And here we have inference clusters. We will pick new. And yeah, previously we have used this one. Take a standard one. Take next. Let's just take a development test one. And MLinf cluster. Number of nodes. 3 sounds good. And we will just take create here. This will also take some time, so maybe a minute or two, so I will pause this till it's done. Okay, we are back. It took a little bit longer time than I thought, about 10 minutes, I think. And now we will return to our pipeline. Have our pipeline draft and our real-time inference pipeline. So we go back to that one. And now we will deploy it, setting up a real-time endpoint. Endpoint ML. Now we can actually, okay. Now we can actually pick our cluster. And let's now deploy this one. So it's in progress. So I will pause once more. Okay, we are back again, and the endpoint has now been created. And let's then go to the endpoint. So basically what we have done, we have actually deployed our trained model. So it can now take a web service input, and it will create a web service output via an endpoint. And we have our endpoints here. And let's go and check the endpoint. As you can see, it says deployment state, healthy. And we now have an address to the REST endpoint to which we can issue calls. And there is also some code we can use in C#, Python, or R to use this endpoint and basically send input data and then get the prediction as the output from our machine learning model. And we do that via HTTP, like the REST endpoints. So it's basically online. And under the endpoint, we also have the tab test, where we can actually test our model right here in the interface. And for instance, we can put in some information here, age, work class, etc., and then we will get the output income. So for instance, if we have someone with a master's education, married, white male, 50, the prediction is that we will get that this person will earn more than 50K. If we instead put in, as an example, age 30, we will get someone with, we will get the predicted outcome that the scored label will be that this person will earn less than 50K. And then you can, of course, play around with this, but this is an easy way to just test the model with your data. Yeah, so okay. So let's just take a short recap then. We started with our dataset, and there are quite a few sample datasets here, and of course we can import our own, obviously, datasets. We split the data into a training and test dataset. We trained our model and picked one of the many machine learning algorithms. And after we had trained the model, we scored the model against our test data, and then we evaluated our model to see how well it performed. After that, we created an inference pipeline, a real-time inference pipeline. We deployed it, and we deployed it on a powerful computational cluster. And now it can, via web service, take some input data, and we can do that via application calls, so to speak, and we can do that via code, for instance. And we can also test it, and then we will get some output from our trained model. Okay, so I guess this concludes this demonstration. Thank you very much. Okay, for those of you who are left, thank you for basically enduring this demonstration. And hopefully these steps should be not too difficult enough to reproduce. And of course, it would be even more interesting to bring in your own data set and continue experimenting and just pick and choose among the various algorithms available. So yeah, thank you. Any questions? Okay. So what do you say? Shall we conclude? Anything from you, Marcus, Fredrik, Carl?
We have the last Menti, if you would like to use that one.
Yeah, sure. Maybe if someone is
Carl
already
is on it.
Yeah.
So, question 2. Just follow the instruction. Okay, I will start the countdown now. I guess it would also be just appropriate to say thank you all for spending time on listening to us and watching our demonstrations.
And the material will be composed and sent out to everyone.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great evening or wherever you are. great day and take care.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.